All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to go on a rant. But to get on this rant, we first need to go through the history of Age of Mythology and how the sort of mirror matchup worked. This is me chatting a little bit about effectively what makes a kind of mirror matchup fun for me personally and what makes a mirror matchup not fun for me personally. So I want to go all the way back to Legacy and just give you a couple of examples of things that I didn't think were immensely fun to play and ways in which that the current meta of Age of Mythology Retold, there are fun mirror matchups in Age of Mythology Retold, and there are not so fun mirror matchups in Age of Mythology Retold. So if we go back to Legacy and we talk a little bit about how maybe let's go and start with the Greeks first and talk about what I liked about him and what I didn't like about him. So if we go in and we take a look at the Zeus mirror matchup. In Legacy, there were two strategies that worked in the Greek mirror matchup. Sorry, the Zeus mirror matchup. The first one was Mass Centaur into Boom, into Mythic Age, into whatever. And I didn't particularly like this, but at least you had action going on from the get-go. Now, the better players got, the more they realized that actually you don't want to be aggressive here. You actually just want to have your units your Centaur in the right position. Your opponent is going to run their Centaur into you. They're going to lose them, and you're going to come out in front and be able to then race towards the Mythic Age and then find the victory. I didn't find that fun, but that took many, many years for people to figure out. The other option was kind of an Athena Hippias, or it was a Hippocon back then, but Athena Hippias sort of angle, which wasn't like an S tier strategy. It couldn't really beat the Centaur angle all too often, but when you went for this angle and your opponent also went for this angle, it was actually really, really fun to play because you have action going on from the very get-go, and you can also start mixing in hoplites or toxotes depending on what's actually going on. So it wasn't just a single unit spam fest, and it was kind of a lot of fun. That brings us into the Hades Poseidon matchup, which I think depending on the map, it was either really, really boring in that it was just grab town center, go heroic age, go mythic age, and then at like 15 minutes you'd start fighting. Or it was really, really fun because you would get to you'd open with a really fast advance, which was depending on the map possible or not, and then you would be able to either deny or get significant damage done on a second town center player who's going for that. And then you'd be able to follow that up with your own second town center and also still have units to be able to kind of harass, which would then mean that it would be impossible for your opponent to do a fast heroic after the second town center or a fast mythic. They had to build units and you would be able to kind of zone each other or whatever in that matchup. So you can see the point that I'm getting at already, but let's keep going. In the Egyptian mirror, effectively, it was a two-town center fast heroic into timing attack meta. That's what it was. And if you could defend the timing attack or whatever, if both players did it, then they would be able to be okay. If you couldn't, then it was all over. There were a couple of set options where you could go one town center fast heroic timing attack to kind of catch a two-town center player out. That could work, but for the vast majority, you're doing a fast second town center timing attack at about 9 to 10 minutes. If you could hold, you would continue along and you'd actually have a nice long heroic age engagement. I wouldn't say this is my favorite. I much prefer to be able to build units in the classical age and do something with them, but in that heroic age, at least there was something going on and it wasn't just a fast mythic fest, kind of like the Greek two town centers sort of meta was. So it was a little bit better than that. Norse mirror, I will say I didn't particularly like, even though it does go down the route that I do like. I didn't like the ending of the Norse mirror, and I'll get to that. But Norse mirror was effectively hyper aggression at the start, which did result in at the very end people realizing, well, if I just kind of match my opponent's aggression, I should be able to defend them. So you would have kind of both players going for a hyper aggressive opening, and then maybe the game finishes at 6 minutes. Maybe everyone dies and then you can go into a longer game. If you did happen to get that longer game, it would often end in a mass Ragnarok, which I wasn't a fan of. Obviously, it's pretty cool to see it once or twice, but I much prefer to see games that can develop into the late game to some degree if everything is equal, right? Otherwise, both players clicking Ragnarok and then the game's over is fun and fun and good and bad at the same time. You know, you don't want too much of this thing, but you don't want too much of this thing. It's a hard thing to balance, but that was what Legacy was doing there. And then the Atlantean mirror was kind of turned into both players spam Momillo Terma at each other at the start, and then they would go Heroic Age, and then they would make Stymphalian Birds and Dryads, and if your opponent would be slightly in front, they would win at that stage. And then you would go Mythic Age and drop Tartarian Gate, and whoever dropped Tartarian Gate first wins. So effectively, whoever dropped Tartarian Gate first but had no economic problems behind it, they would generally win that matchup, which, I mean, I don't think it was necessarily bad, the meta, so to speak, in the Atlantean mirror, but it was not, I don't know. I wasn't exactly sure if it was going in a good way or not, but I don't know if it really settled towards the very end of Legacy as to exactly what everyone should do. And before I go any further, when we're talking about meta, all we're talking about is just the best available strategy. And that doesn't mean that it's the best available strategy beats everything else. It's just that the best available strategy is the one that the strategy everyone's using. And there might be some sort of off-meta idea that could beat that from time to time, depending on maps and things. So you could catch people out with some good strategy. Now we come into Retold, and we talk about a little bit about what this is starting to look like. I'm going to gloss over the Greeks because I'm not actually sure at this moment what happens. Though I think we have a very similar kind of situation to early on, in that if you can get enough damage done, it's kind of nice. You can play a 1 town center aggressive opening, get a whole bunch of damage done. And if you both players decide to opt into a second town center, then it's just a fast heroic, fast mythic fest, which, you know, that's the players opting into that. They can opt out of that if they want to, right? They can be on the aggressive. And then if both players go aggressive, I think that's really fun. Then you jump over to the Egyptian mirror, and this is where things start to get where I don't particularly like this. I think this is really, really anti what RTS is about. Effectively, it seems like there's no way to block an opponent from going 2 town centers into fast heroic, into fast mythic. That's what it seems like to me. So the current strategy for, and I'll just talk straight from Ra, is 4-minute advance time. You build 2 priests. Now this is my understanding. I don't know if other top players are on the same page as me with this. You build 2 priests. You drop the town center straight away. Any sort of shifting sands attack your opponent can do here is beatable with 1 Wadjet, 3 priest, and a pharaoh on that town center. So you just leave them all over there. No shifting sands attack can come in, so it's impossible to stop a town center, is what I'm trying to say. If the Ra player plays that opening correctly, it's impossible to stop that town center from going up. So any sort of shifting of sands attack should be off the table if that's correct. So that then leaves it's only possible to go for a classical age aggression to try and contain the Egyptian player. However, you can't go for anything other than Wadgets because the Wadgets completely kill everything that is on the table for the other thing. So you have to go through Ptah, which means you've got very, very immobile army trying to gold block a very, very mobile, or a lot of villages. The villages can move from one side to the other side. And it's just, I don't think that it's going to be necessarily possible, especially when they've also got shifting sands, to avoid your shifting sands. So classical fights off the cards. So you have to go for a fast heroic. Now you're going to say, okay, well, at least you got the timing attack thing that was from Legacy. Nothing I have come up with works. Everything ends up failing because 1, siege towers get killed too quickly. You can't actually use those to kill buildings. The villagers are killing off the siege towers too quickly. And 2, camel riders beat everything that you can build out of Migdol. And 3, if you go into barracks units and you try and do a barracks sort of idea, then your opponent can abandon or read that basically because they've got obelisks all over the place, and then they can go mass chariot archer and they can beat that. So I'm not sure what the answer is there, and maybe I'm wrong on this, and maybe there is something else. But basically what I'm feeling at the moment is that the meta is just a fast mythic. And as you can tell from my point about the Greek meta from Legacy, and maybe even not so much now, but the Greek meta from Legacy, I really don't like fast mythic metas. Because I think that while I think it's fun to be able to go fast mythic here, throw a strategy at their opponent to catch them off guard, if that's the meta, I think it's really, really bad. So I don't know what the solution is here. I think maybe like just a siege tower, like maybe villages doing less bonus damage versus siege towers could be an angle. So at least the you have to be concerned about a timing attack coming through. Maybe I have to go back to the drawing board and actually try a couple of other timing attacks that I haven't thought of, like maybe doing Spearman Siege Tower, maybe Spearman Scarab is an angle for me to go down with Shifting Sands, but I don't really know. So take it with a grain of salt with regards to this. I'm still trying to work it out myself, and top players will only play the strongest strat that they think at the time, and maybe they're trying to figure out other ways to play against it as well, and they just haven't been able to come up with it. That's why they're doing this. So I might be correct on this assumption. Nonetheless, Norse Mirror at the moment, I'm still at a loss for this one. I haven't seen any Norse Mirror go past like 15 minutes. I'm not sure why. Maybe I haven't seen enough Norse Mirrors. So I don't really know what's going on there. But it seems like one player just ends up falling flat. So I don't know if this is just players still trying to work out how to play the game. I mean, the game's still relatively new, and they don't realize what they can and can't get away with. I have played some Norse Mirrors where I've kind of been bashing my head against them, and they've been bashing their head against me, and we did last till the Mythic Age, so I know it's possible to go that angle, but it is, at the very least, it's action for the entirety of the game. So I do like it. I do like the Norse Mirror in a way, even if I'm completely confused by the whole thing. And then finally, Atlantean Mirror at the moment. I don't think this is necessarily an issue or not in terms of the mirror. Maybe it's an issue in a different matchup, but you've basically got Mass Promethean versus Mass Promethean with extra units in the Classical Age, which I don't think is a terrible thing. If you can pick off your opponent's oracles, you can find an advantage. So you just have to do Mass Prometheans. If you're playing as Gaia, I have seen Gaia players hold Mass Prometheans, but maybe the Mass Prometheans are just winning in that, and Gaia can't really participate. Though she does have automatons, so I've lost to automatons before playing Mass Promethean. So there is action from the start there in the Atlanteans, and it's going to be action for the entirety of the game. So I do like that. So in the end of the day, really, my only gripe at the moment, I think, in this whole thing is just the Egyptian mirror. Camel Riders seemingly being way too effective at doing basically everything, and fast mythics, like timing attacks not working, fast mythics being super good. Like the way that I see it, right, is a timing attack should beat a greed, like a tech play. Like a timing attack literally should, because your opponent's invested 2,000 resources into an advanced time, and you have invested 2,000 resources into military units. So that should be enough for you to get an advantage, but it doesn't seem like it's happening. But that could just be me. Anyways, I'm going to keep trying to crack this Egyptian mirror to see if there are any sort of angles you can go down. Now you have to also remember if there's only one angle to go down, then that means that there is probably going to be an angle to defend that. So you definitely need multiple ways to play a matchup. Otherwise, things get really, really sad. And we can continue this conversation. If you do like these sort of kind of rants or whatever, we can continue this conversation down the line of like the Egyptian versus Norse matchup, or potentially the Greek versus myth unit problem, et cetera, and we can talk about that. Let me know what you guys want me to talk about in the comment section, and I'll see you guys in the next one.